What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you have decided if you are team playoffs or team tank, because that is the main primary conversation surrounding the Dallas Cowboys these days. Depending on what side of the aisle you fall on, there is a rooting guide for you. In the last video that we had here on the channel, I discussed what you need to root for if your team playoffs, what you need to root for if your team tanks. So go ahead and subscribe right here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel so you get access to videos like that and all sorts of other things. You get access to me talking shop, talking all things America's team. We're here today to talk about Micah Parsons and some pretty impressive comments that he had today on Thursday, December the 19th. But before we get there, I mentioned America's team, and I feel like we have to talk about this for at least a minute or two in case you somehow missed it. About a year and a half ago, it was July of 2023. So again, about a year and a half back, it was reported that Netflix was working on a documentary series chronicling Jerry Jones and his era of ownership with the Cowboys. Obviously, Netflix had the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary this past summer or whenever it was. And today, on Thursday, the trailer for this Netflix documentary was finally released. It's kind of a teaser trailer, but it is available nonetheless. And if you haven't seen it, here it is.
This is our story.
And if you ask anybody where I live,
It's bigger than winning football games.
Dallas Cowboys,
They became America's team.
America's team.
nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.
Let's go!
Do they have an idea what they're doing?
What did you prove?
Yes.
Keep them talking.
I'm all the way up.
It's a soap opera, 365 days a year.
Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.
Pretty annoying, if I'm being honest. Pretty annoying. I had a pretty funny tweet, I thought, on Thursday. And it was, do you think there will be more episodes of this series than there will be Dallas Cowboys wins when this season is ultimately over? The Cowboys are sitting on 6 wins at the moment. So they technically could get to 9. So this is a 10-part, series. We're screwed. And that's kind of, where things are at, which is ultimately the case with, this Dallas Cowboys season, basically. But yeah, it is interesting how the documentary teaser trailer sort of presents the idea that the Cowboys became America's team under Jerry Jones, which is not true. Obviously, if you have followed the team for some time, I think you're pretty well aware of that. It's kind of our job and my job to make sure you know that. But yeah, I'll watch it. I'll have some content around it. I'll be straight up with you. But as a fan of this team, it is definitely highly, highly, highly annoying. But let's get to what we're here today to talk about. And that is Micah Parsons saying some pretty impressive things. Obviously, the Cowboys getting ready to host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. And as is the case, different members of the team making their media appearances as the week goes along, and it was Micah Parsons' turn on Thursday. So let's go ahead and just kind of jump right into it. Here's a quote from Micah. Shout out to John Machota of The Athletic. Cowboys defensive end Micah Parsons made it clear he doesn't need to be the highest paid defensive player. He said it would be nice, but added it would be nice to be surrounded by good players. Players are going to help you win championships. I want to keep as many guys as possible. I want to work with them as much as possible. I don't need $40 million per year. I need to be somewhere where I can have a lake house. Lake houses range in costs. So, hey, whatever. Micah, according to John Machota, added that he would like a new contract before the start of training camp. So let's unpack this in a few different ways. First of all, this is a cool thing. This is what you want to hear. Obviously, if you're a fan of a player, right, you're a fan of a team, there's people who subscribe to, players shouldn't hold out, players should honor their contracts, whatever. I'm not here to get into the specifics of that kind of conversation. What I am here to say is that it isn't Micah's job to make sure the Cowboys have enough money to build a championship team, right? It isn't Dak Prescott's job. It isn't CeeDee Lamb's job. It's Jerry Jones's job, and it's Stephen Jones's job, and it's Will McClay's job. It's the entire front office's job. So while it's incredibly noble of Micah Parsons, it's not his job. We can sit here and we can rightfully say it is very cool of Micah, very generous, very humble, very noble to have this disposition, but it is ultimately not his job, which is what makes it so cool and humble and noble and everything that we just said. It is a little bit of a, we'll wait and see, right? Because Mike obviously has representation, and, that's kind of a rare thing, if we're being honest, right? That's kind of a rare thing where we see not just football players, but athletes in general turn down money that they could ultimately have in the name of helping their team, right? There's always some sort of catch. And so, generally speaking, we see players utilize and wield all of the leverage that they possibly can. It's worth mentioning, by the way, that Micah talked about I don't need $40 million or whatever the case may be, like $40 million per year. Obviously, when Nick Bosa is kind of the standard as far as edge rushers are concerned, and Nick Bosa didn't touch $40 million per year. Nick Bosa is currently sitting on, a pretty impressive, obviously, bit of money. I'm pulling up his full contract for you here. I'm having trouble with my computer. That's why I'm stalling a little bit here. But Bosa's deal in its entirety was a 5-year, $170 million deal. So Bosa didn't come anywhere near $40 million a year, right? And to suggest that Micah would get there isn't ridiculous in the sense that Micah's certainly worth that. But I mean, that $40 million per year that's a big number, right? So it's kind of like when you offer something really low for something you really want, and you're actually willing to come up a lot in price, you kind of lowball. Throwing out $40 million per year is it's incredible. I mean, it's an incredible kind of starting place, I guess, if you want to, get to that sort of conversation. Here I go. My computer's finally now working out. Let me get this screen off. Let me put this screen up for you here. So Micah's quote was, and again, I'm not saying that Micah's being disingenuous in his quote here, but this is overthecap.com. These are edge rushers. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you here. Nick Bosa is the highest paid edge rusher in the game at the moment. We obviously assume that Micah Parsons will get paid along these lines, not as a linebacker, even though, we've heard the Cowboys try to bake that language in. But that being said, the jump from 34 to 40 is significant. So, if you come down a bit from 40 and you ultimately land at 35, sure, you're not getting $40 million per year, but you're still getting paid as the highest paid edge rusher in the game. I would be stunned if Micah takes less than Nick Bosa on an annual average basis. And I don't think he would be wrong to ask for more than that, to be very clear, because that's the way these things tend to go. But it is still cool, and I don't mean to take away from what Micah said. I just wanted to, do a video and kind of apply some context, because I think that matters when it comes to these sorts of things. And I think that the words that we're hearing from the Cowboys in this moment in time, certainly Dak Prescott advocating for Mike McCarthy to return, things like that, those all hold water as this season finally mercifully comes to a bit of a close. Let's put a different quote from Micah up here on the screen. Again, shout out to John Machota, friend of the program, says that Micah doesn't plan to hold out. That is certainly great to hear. Micah's quote, I think I'll still be around. I don't know what the coaching is going to be like. At some point, if I got to learn a new scheme, I would love to have Zimmer back. He has done a tremendous job. I would love to have him back. But if they do change, or he just feels like he's ready to go with the horses, I got to learn a new scheme. I got to be around guys. There's a chemistry part. I still got to be there for that part. Now, what I will say here, because I know that everything I've said to this point sounds a little bit like hating, and I in no way mean it to be that way. What I will say here to really make up for Micah, and I have gone on record for this a few different times at this point, Micah, I talked about how we generally see players wield all of the leverage that they have, right? We generally see players capitalize and exercise on that leverage. Now, Dak Prescott did not. For those of you who don't like Dak, he reported to camp, despite that he was, headed into a contract year before ultimately getting his extension with the team. We did see CeeDee Lamb. I don't have any faults against CeeDee Lamb. I have nothing bad to say about CeeDee Lamb. He had every right to hold out. Any player who wants to hold out has every right to do as they see fit. But Micah Parsons was eligible for a contract extension this past offseason, and he did not get it. And he did not hold out. Micah could have made life very difficult for the Dallas Cowboys front office back in the offseason, more difficult than they made it for themselves, to be very clear. But he could have made things very, very, very difficult for the Cowboys by saying, look, I know you're working on CeeDee, I know you're working on Dak, and by working, I mean not actually working, but I know that those are technically things that still have to happen for this organization, but I'm not going to show up to camp. I'm not going to show up to OTAs. I'm not going to show up to anything because I have performed over the first 3 years of my career. I deserve to be paid. I'm ready to be paid. I'm eligible to be paid. So you need to pay me for me to show up. He did not do that. And to that point, it makes what Micah's saying somewhat believable. Again, we can joke about the $40 million and the $34 million and Nick Bosa and all these different things, but it feels similar. Nothing's ever apples to apples, but recall when Des Bryant was going through his franchise tag situation with the Cowboys, how he showed up and he was even, somewhat, loosely involved in practice and things like that. Micah feels a little bit different in that sense, that he just really wants to be around the team. He understands this is the team he wants to play for, things like that. I feel incredibly confident that the deal will ultimately get done. I do not want it to take until training camp. I don't think any of us want this to drag on that long. I've said already, And I'm going to tell you again, and I'm going to keep telling you until we get to the point where this extension is hopefully done. The Cowboys are going to prove to us very early on in the offseason, which starts in about a month, not even a month, in 3 weeks. The Cowboys are going to prove to us what lessons they did or did not learn this past offseason. If they're serious about evolving, if they're serious about acting like adults, or if they just want to be the team that makes Netflix documentaries. Because if they let this Micah extension drag on, they will have proven that they've learned nothing. And this could all be, if we're just talking, right? It's the whole point here is to kind of parse through things together. This could all be posturing. This could all be establishing a different point of leverage, because when Micah comes out and offers quotes like this, 100% of the fan base is behind him, right? And so if you're the Cowboys brass, if you're the Cowboys front office, you already look pretty stupid and everybody kind of thinks that you don't know what you're doing. And now this player's telling everybody that he's willing to take a little bit less, and you just got to do your part. And so if you don't do it, it makes you look all the more incompetent. My point here is, if the Cowboys are serious about competing, they will ultimately get a deal done in the immediate moments of the offseason. I didn't have this pulled up because I just remembered that it came out. So if you give me a second to buy some time, I'm looking, and I'm going to get there very quickly because I can stall like no other. Getting there right now. All right, here we go. Let's switch the screen that I'm sharing from 1 second to another, and here we go. This was from ESPN's Todd Archer. Did a fantastic job on Thursday. The title's, what does the Cowboys 2025 salary cap look like? Again, I'm bringing this up to tell you and to show you, to prove to you how the Cowboys have a chance to prove to us whether or not they have grown up when the offseason ultimately does hit. So Todd talked about Steven's comments from this week that, went all over the place about how the Cowboys are really going to be up against it in 2025, which led a lot of us to believe that they're not going to do anything in free agency, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what Todd writes. Will it be another offseason like 2024? I'll zoom in a little bit for you here. When they didn't consider adding a star free agent running back Derrick Henry, blah, blah, blah. So here we go. Some projections expect the 25 salary cap to be approximately $275 million. Cap space, here is the part I'm reading here. To steal a term from owner and general manager Jerry Jones, fungible. This is the part that's important, okay? Prescott, talking about Dak, obviously, has a 25 cap number of, let's call it $90 million, obviously based off the extension that he just signed at the beginning of the season. The Cowboys will restructure that deal and gain about $36 million in cap room. Boom, flick of the wrist, flick one, swoosh of the pen. The Cowboys generate $36 million in salary cap space, which again is why we advocated for this to be done as soon as possible so that this alleviation could begin to happen. We see elite front offices do this all the time. Okay, water under the bridge. Lamb has a cap number of $35.5 million for next season, etc. The Cowboys will restructure that deal and gain about $20 million in salary cap space. Boom, flick of the wrist, swoosh of the pen. Once again, with two swooshes, the Cowboys can create $36 million in salary cap space off of Dak Prescott and $20 million in salary cap space off of CeeDee Lamb. Now, I'm going to take this off the screen for a moment here because we advocated for these extensions to get done in the early days of last offseason. The extensions that already did get done for the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. Why did we advocate for those extensions to get done? So that the alleviations could come soon, so that the alleviations could create salary cap space in March, so that the Cowboys could use that alleviated salary cap space to bring in new players. We will learn whether or not they learned that lesson relative to Micah Parsons, because as we put Todd Archer's article back up on the screen for you here, that $56 million or so is a huge boost, and it would be more money if they extend Parsons, like it was true with CeeDee, like it was true with Dak last year, this year, but last offseason, like it was true with them in the exact same way it was true with them. If the Cowboys are serious, they will extend Micah as early as possible, not only to get the extension done and not have this, soap opera, as the Netflix documentary told us, hanging over their heads for another 6 months, but so that they can create all the more salary cap space to improve their roster. He is set to count, as Todd Archer writes, $21.4 million on his fifth-year option, which is the 25 season for Micah at this point in time without an extension. But a multi-year extension would lower that figure. Last offseason, the Cowboys did not sign Lamb until August and Prescott until September, so it's difficult to imagine the Cowboys will get a Parsons deal done by the time free agency opens in the middle of March. It is difficult. I don't disagree with Todd Archer whatsoever, but it's frustrating, and that's where I'm saying, if the Cowboys get this done, we will throw them a digital parade here we'll go live. We'll have a celebration. We will pat them on the back and we will clap for them for acting like the adults that they're supposed to be relative to running this particular team. So this whole thing is setting up to happen in terms of legitimacy very soon, because we are 3 weeks away from the season, in all likelihood, being over for the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, it could be over in a formal sense this weekend. It could be over before they even play. If the Washington Commanders beat the Philadelphia Eagles, then it's over. The Cowboys are eliminated from playoff contention, which is why if you're a playoff fan, you're rooting against the Commanders. Like I said, we talked about that in that particular video. So the Cowboys are going to be beginning their offseason very soon. They're going to have to figure out what they want to do at head coach. If they're bringing in a new coach, who they want to be on their staff, they're going to have to figure out this Micah Parsons situation. Soon enough, the Super Bowl will arrive. We'll see different players. I would assume Dak, CD, Micah, maybe Trayvon Diggs doing the Super Bowl Radio Row car washes. We'll get some quotes, etc. Then it'll be time for the combine. We'll hear from whether it's McCarthy, the new coach, and all these things will continue to go on as they have forever at this point in time and will continue to forever. But you need to get this done. You do not need to wait forever because free agency will get here and we will expect you to have learned. And if you don't, we're not going to watch your Netflix documentary. We're not going to believe that you're trying to win. We're not going to believe any of those things because you're going to have put the proof in the pudding. So I do want to end on a high note, and because I know that was kind of depressing, and everything Micah said was very cool, and that's why it should be something that we ultimately end positively with. This next one isn't really anything to do with the contract extension, but it's really cool. So obviously, it's a big weekend for football. Thursday Night Football today, I'm putting this together. Tomorrow, Friday, the college football playoff begins. We got playoff games on Saturday. We got NFL games on Saturday. Obviously, the NFL Sunday slate taking us into Sunday Night Football when Dallas plays. And then we get Monday Night Football as well. So basically, get the wings, the pizza, the burger, the ribs, whatever you got going, because it's going to be incredible. Now, Micah's in a bit of a tough spot. Obviously, a Pennsylvania person, a Penn State alum. Penn State is playing SMU. So, not everybody can have a first-round bye like my Sun Devils. All right, so I understand that, these poverty schools got to figure it out in the first round, right? But Penn State's hosting SMU, and there's, I would imagine, a lot of you, SMU fans who are Dallas Cowboys fans. Obviously, the geographical location is obvious. And what's more is Micah effectively has to root for the Eagles to be the Commanders because, as we said, if the Commanders win on Sunday, then the Cowboys are eliminated from playoff contention. So shout out to Saad Yusuf, also of The Athletic, for this tweet. Tweeted, asked Micah Parsons if he's rooting for both his home state teams, Penn State in the college football playoff against SMU, Eagles versus Commanders because the Dallas is eliminated if Washington wins. Micah's quote, nah, at this point, it's, you can read that for yourself, Philly, even if we get eliminated, like, I got to crush Philly. You can read that then. I hate them now. If the Cowboys don't make this man a Cowboy for life, we have every reason to riot in the streets. And that's what we're going to go ahead and wind up doing. But thank y'all so much for some time. Thank y'all so much for hanging out. If you haven't yet, please subscribe here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. If you haven't followed me on social media yet, the links to do so are down below. Twitter, Instagram, Threads, RJ Ochoa, TikTok, rj.ochoa. If you want to send me an email, you can do that as well. rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. Tomorrow on Friday, we'll have our Madden simulation dropping for you. And Saturday, Dallas Cowboys and Espanol, where I offer my 3 predictions for the game, but obviously in Spanish. Let's go ahead and let's get out of here. Thank y'all so much. And we'll see you next time.